time, I call to order the regular meeting of the Maricopa County Community College District Governing Board for June 26, 2018. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Dr. Linda Thor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Substitutions, we have Dr. I'm sorry, we're going to recess the regular board meeting, and we will proceed at this time to call to order the public hearing of the Maricopa Community College District Governing Board for June 26th. The first item on the public hearing agenda is a hearing concerning the adoption of the proposed budget of the Gateway Early College High School budget for fiscal year 2018-19. This hearing is required under state law. The purpose of the hearing is to give any resident or taxpayer the opportunity to protest the inclusion of any item in the proposed budget. At this time, I will afford any resident or taxpayer the opportunity to address the governing board concerning the proposed action under consideration. Do we have anyone that wishes to speak on this topic? Seeing none, do we have any comments by the board? Seeing none, that now concludes the public hearing for the adoption of the proposed budget of the Gateway Early College High School for fiscal year 2018-19. The second item on this agenda is item number 2, a public hearing concerning the adoption of the proposed budget of the Phoenix College Preparatory Academy budget for the fiscal year 2018-19. This hearing is required under state law. The purpose of the hearing is to give any resident or taxpayer the opportunity to protest the inclusion of any item in the proposed budget. At this time, I will afford any resident or taxpayer the opportunity to address the governing board concerning the proposed action under consideration. Do we have anyone that wishes to speak from the audience? Do we have any comments from the board? That now concludes the public hearing for the adoption of the proposed budget of the Phoenix College Preparatory Academy for fiscal year 2018-19. Final adoption of these two budgets will take place during the business portion of the regular board meeting. That concludes the public hearing. The public hearing is adjourned. At this time, we will reconvene the regular meeting of the Maricopa County Community College District Governing Board. Substitutions: Dr. Heather Weber for Dr. Ernie Lara and Todd Simmons for Dr. Chris Bustamante. Chancellor report. Chancellor Harper-Marinick.
Mr. Hendrix, members of the board, I don't have a report tonight. Thank you.
This is going to be a fast meeting. Citizens interim. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the governing board about items that are not on the agenda for discussion today. There will be an opportunity to comment on today's agenda items when the item comes up on the agenda for board discussion. In compliance with the open meeting law, the governing board will neither discuss nor take action on issues raised during this portion of the agenda. Each speaker is asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. I have one person signed in to talk about a topic that will be on the agenda, and I will call them when we get to that item. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Seeing none, we will now move to consideration of consent agenda items. All items with an asterisk are consent matters unless they are removed from the consent agenda at this time. Do any board members or the Chancellor wish to remove any items from the consent agenda? Ms. Livingston.
I would like to pull 7.3, 7.2, and 10.1.
7.3, 7.2, and 10.1. Dr. Thor, did you have an item?
She already removed the item I was going to.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
I so move.
I second.
Let's see, is Mrs. Cooper here tonight?
Mr. Hendrix, she's
I've
not.
got
We
a
have
question.
Ms.
With the-
Yusa.
With the new state law, are we required to take a roll call vote for every vote, or are we just required to be certain how each vote was declared? Can we vote by all saying aye, or do we have to call roll call
On the consent agenda,
on any item?
on any item, there's been no changes to, it is, I believe, yeah. It is proper to take a vote as to the lot of the consent agenda and the non-consent agenda per item.
So
Mr.
the new
Hendricks.
law that requires to identify each member's vote, does that come into play at all?
We can identify that per those, voting.
Let's take a roll call vote.
collectively.
just to be sure
Mr.
we're
Hendricks,
aligned.
I get what your question is, so let me address that. As long as we can identify, Ms. Beamer can identify how board members voted, you don't need to do roll call vote.
Okay.
So if, for example, 6 of you are A's and 1 person is an A, then she would need to know who that dissenting member is.
Okay. With regard to approval of the consent agenda, those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed by saying nay.
Aye. I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Consent agenda passes unanimously.
Seven, 7.2. 7.3. And 10.1. Yeah,
7172173.
no, just 7.2, 7.3, 10.1. Oh, it is not consent, so just 7.7.
Okay, we'll proceed to item 7.2, contract for lobbying services. Ms. Livingston.
I took some notes, and I don't usually do this. I usually speak from the heart. But I wanted to understand that first, as stewards of the taxpayers' money, we have a great diligent service to do for you. This is one of those items that we don't have to approve. We don't. Actually, the Chancellor can approve this solely. And I'm finding, as I'm looking back on some recent votes, we're getting a little bit too in the weeds. And we need to allow our Chancellor to do her job, and of course our in-house lobbyists to feel comfortable. This would be a blanket yay or nay for a lobbying firm that I have great respect for, but I don't feel it rests with us. I do absolutely feel that it rests with the Chancellor and our in-house policy creators, so to speak. Also, if we're going to take a vote during this year, we have never seen any documents of any positive effect at the legislature. In fact, we haven't been on the budget for the last 3 years. And so if we're going to approve or disapprove a contract, we need to see a plan. We don't have a plan. We do not have a roadmap. And quite frankly, as a governing board, this is not our role. So for that, I would like to remove this item from being voted on this evening until we see a roadmap.
Any further comments from the board? Dr. Thor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have some similar issues that I don't recall this board discussing or setting a legislative agenda. Therefore, I'm confused as to why we would be entering into a contract to be representing us at the legislature. Further, I have some issues with the scope of the work. The first one indicates that they're going to be working with stakeholders to maintain effective relationships with other higher education institutions. And It's certainly my understanding that maintaining effective relationships with other higher education institutions is the responsibility of the Chancellor, the Provost, and our college presidents. Similarly, the next item is work with stakeholders in the development of a construction trades partnership. And again, I was under the impression that the institutes that we're forming, which includes one in the construction area, would be the responsibility of the occupational administrators and the faculty in those areas. Number 3 says maintain relationships with East Valley legislators, businesses, and other elected officials. What happened to Central Phoenix and the West Valley? So I agree with Mrs. Livingston that it's premature for us to be entering into an agreement like this until we're clear what it is they're going to do, what it is we need done, and is this the right firm to accomplish that?
And just to
Ms. Livingston.
just to concur, the Chancellor is our figurehead. She is obviously much more than a figurehead, but she does represent us all over the state and has been doing a fantastic job. If this, what Dr. Thor read, is what the scope and sequence, and I've read the same thing, for this contract, I just purely don't understand, and I agree with Dr. Thor entirely that this should be revisited.
Any further comments from the board? Mr. Saar.
Well, did I hear a motion there? Because there's not a motion on the table yet.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to make a motion?
For the adoption of 7.2 on the agenda.
As written. Is that right?
As presented. As presented.
Can't.
As presented.
Would you second it?
They're asking for as presented.
You mean as presented?
I said 7.2.
As presented.
Can we make it?
Let me second it and then we can go on.
Okay, thank you. I mean, obviously, your entire board is not cohesive at this moment, and this is a huge deal. This is about getting back on to the funding mechanism or other things at the legislature, not just partnerships. Is there a way to table this and then come back to it at a later time when there's more information? I feel that's very fair, President Hendrix.
You can motion to table it and we can vote on the motion.
I move to table 7.2 till a later date.
Second.
Okay, we will vote on whether or not to table item 7.2. A yes vote would delay any vote until a future scheduled meeting. A no vote, we would proceed to vote on the amendment as motioned by Mrs. McGrath. Mr. Bartning, how do you vote?
Nay.
Mrs. McGrath?
Nay.
Dr. Thor?
Yes.
Ms. Livingston?
Yes.
Mr. Saar?
I'll vote nay at this point.
Mrs. Haber?
Nay.
Hendricks votes no. Motion to table, the motion fails. We'll proceed to vote on the underlying amendment as motioned by Mrs.
Any
McGrath.
discussion?
Mr. Saar?
I agree with both comments that this may not be a board item to begin with, and question why it's on the board docket. It might be that the dollar amount takes us above what the Chancellor can do on her own. Is that right?
No.
So I agree with what's been said that this should not be a board decision. So I would make a motion that we delete this item from tonight's agenda. And I'll keep going.
Okay, go ahead.
You need a second.
I'm going to continue the motion that the Chancellor is responsible for this item.
Hallelujah. I second it.
We will vote on a motion to delete this item from the agenda tonight. If this motion is deleted, it will effectively be dead tonight, and it will be in the Chancellor's lap to decide which way she wants to go. If we vote to keep it on the agenda, then we will vote on this item tonight. Mr. Bartley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. McGrath?
Nay.
Dr. Thor?
Aye.
Ms. Livingston?
Aye.
Mr. Sarr?
Aye.
Mrs. Haber?
Aye.
Hendrix votes no. The ayes have it. The item is deleted from the agenda. We will move to item 7.3, settlement of claim of core construction.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Sarr?
I'll make a motion on this that we approve a settlement in the amount of $7,813,000 as determined in executive session for the claim and lawsuit filed by Core Construction Incorporated.
Second.
Second. Yes, Ms. Livingston.
This has troubled me. And a few months ago, we were coming to something which I thought was fantastic for the campus and for kids. See, 4 years ago when I took this spot, I wanted all of us to work for kids. Not a right or a left, but for kids. In the last few votes, and I'm partial to blame, we have turned down an outstanding offer where we as a board would still spend some money so a Great Heart Academy could be on South Mountain. But now, with turning down that fantastic opportunity with a stellar charter school in our state, we are now faced with what we will vote for tonight. And I question not the school, but I question the judgment for our students in Arizona, and as a board, I just question it greatly. With that, I have no further comment.
Any further comment on item 7.3? We will vote on item 7.3. Given this is a settlement of a lawsuit, we'll do a roll call vote on this one as well. Mr. Bartning, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. McGrath?
Aye.
Dr. Thor?
Aye.
Ms. Livingston?
As an aside comment, there's no choice, so I must vote aye.
Mr. Sarr?
Aye.
Mrs. Haber?
Aye.
Hendrix votes aye. Motion passes unanimously. We'll now move to item 10.1. This item I placed on the agenda. There is no presentation from staff. I didn't place the item on the agenda till late last week. I put it on the agenda for the purpose of discussion, and there wasn't enough time between the time that I asked to have this on the agenda and now for the staff to prepare a presentation. But my purpose for placing it on the agenda was to get some board discussion and input so the staff would know what type of information to put together. I'll make a brief presentation which will lead you to the reasoning why I placed this on the agenda. Then the board can comment and we can give some direction to staff as to what we'd like to hear at the future time. I'll start with a letter that most of us, in fact all of us, should have on our email. The email was dated, I'll give you the email date before I'm finished here, but the first email was a email from Dr. Pan addressed to President Livingston. I'm assuming at the time Mrs. Livingston was the board president. It refers to Mesa Community College experiencing a significant enrollment decline since 2011. It is relevant that this email to President Livingston is dated November 1st of 2015. Dr. Pan relates in his letter, his purpose in writing is to share with you MCC's overall enrollment situation and specifically on pending implementation of a decision with regard to the operations of MCC's Red Mountain campus. And I'm taking bits and pieces out of this email, but you should all have the email because it was forwarded to us in March of last year as well. Since the peak enrollment, the total MCC full-time equivalents declined by 18% during the period he's referring to. During the same time period, Red Mountain's full-time student enrollment declined by 39%, and headcount dropped by 34%. The budget for Red Mountain at that time was $7.1 million. Revenue generated from full-time student enrollment was $2.7 million at a $4.4 million loss that drew from Mesa Community College. In spring of 2015, I charged a task force, I being Dr. Pan, who wrote the letter. I charged a task force with broad faculty and staff representation to review the enrollment challenges at Red Mountain College. I have the report. The task force was quite broad. I'm going to guess 12 or 13 members were in the task force. At the fall 2015 college-wide open forum, I informed the college community of the need to form another assessment team to develop a contingency plan that obviously he thought would be needed. We'll call it Plan B, he referred to. In the final recommendations to Chancellor Glasper, in summary, adopt an educational program focus, investing in growth initiatives, pursuing partnerships, specifically with Mesa Public Schools and Grand Canyon University. Last suggestion was converting Red Mountain site from a campus to an instructional location. The assessment team recommended one-year trigger points for closure if identified strategies are not successful in generating enrollment progress. That again was in November 2015. On March 20th, 2017, we have a follow-up letter to President Gutierrez, the board president at that time, this time from the interim president of Mesa Community College. He indicates his purpose in writing is to update you on the status of the Red Mountain campus. As you'll recall, Dr. Pond provided the governing board with a report dated November 5th of 2015. He's following up on the initiatives from that time. College-wide initiatives have begun, and they contribute to enrollment growth at the Red Mountain College. He summarizes the growth initiatives: new class scheduling improvements, guided pathways to success, new college advisor program, new call campaign for recruiting using Blackboard services, new college contact center for students. He references, given the small and declining high school aged population in the traditional 6-mile campus radius, the new strategy is to create signature programs or centers of excellence that will attract students from across the valley. I'll add my own commentary at this point that the 6-mile radius around Red Mountain is relatively low density. It's an aging age group there, and the demographics as far as income are not typically our clients for community colleges. Continuing with the letter written by the interim president at that time, following new programs have been identified. New programs in partnership with Grand Canyon University. It's my understanding that fell apart within 60 days of when it was initially discussed. Proposal for a new school of dietetics and nutrition in partnership with Linda K. Crandall of the Crandall Corporate Dietitians. My understanding is that never even got off the ground, so it didn't have time to fail because it never went anywhere. New concept for program of holistic and alternative medicine. Partnership with the Foundation for Living Medicine. My understanding is that was less than 90 days before it failed. New programs in partnership with Western New Mexico University, which would create new degree programs. Another one that didn't go anywhere. Final recommendation of the Chancellor, recommend that we reassess as long as we meet our trigger points in about 18 months, which would be December of 2018, which would be coming up this year. The trigger points we talked about, and the title of the page in the presentation that talks about trigger points, the title is Trigger Points for Closure. And in the body of the presentation, it refers to if we hit a trigger point, we will close over a 12-month period. The campus will be closed and eliminated. The trigger point for closure was 1,300 full-time student equivalents by fall of 2016. We certainly fell below that. We are currently at 1,047 for the fall and estimated 927 for the spring. So we're about 25% below our trigger point from 2 years ago of continued efforts to grow. I can forward these to you if you don't have the emails that you all received, but you can see my concern is the board in 2015 which consisted largely of the same board we have today, made the decision to make some efforts to correct or reverse the decline in Red Mountain. It failed. Rather than going forward with their own plan to make a difficult decision and end the problem, they decided to go forward again in 2017, again acknowledging the trigger points, which again failed. And we're back to the same point we've been at twice, except now our enrollment is dipping under 1,000, it appears. We need a different plan, and the point of bringing this up for discussion is, in my mind, there are a variety of plans that could happen, and I'm not advocating for any of them. I'm bringing this up for discussion so that there can be public input and public direction to the staff as to what we would like to see. We could go forward with acknowledging the trigger points that were never met for the last 4 years, and we closed the campus. That would take 12 years to do it. If we did close it, we would need information on, could we sell it, could we lease it, could we repurpose it, what would we do if we closed the campus? Another option is we could continue running it and just pay whatever it costs, take it out of Mesa Community College's budget or take it out of whatever other budget we find. We could ignore declining enrollment. What I'm told right now is it appears to be leveling out. And again, we don't have detailed information from staff because they didn't have time to put it together, but it does appear from what I can see to be leveling out somewhere in the 900s range. It's probably reasonable that we could just keep on running it, and I'm sure that it'll level out when it gets to zero and there'll be no further decline, and that's probably an option also if we wanted to go that direction. Another option I would see is perhaps we could try another committee, perhaps formulate it with a different makeup, with some ideas that might be outside of mainstream thinking of how to repurpose this or how to move it forward. And there may be other ideas. I'm not advocating for any of those. I'm bringing up the discussion to say the board has twice decided we're going to do something to correct this. And both times when it failed, the board came back and said, well, let's not worry about the failure. Let's keep it moving forward. And so it's time to bring it up again. The decision maybe will continue feeding it, continue letting it go forward. But the purpose of this item tonight is to come up with some ideas, suggestions, things that the staff may research for our next meeting. Mrs. Livingston.
Personally, I just feel like I've been led down a negative alley. And the numbers, albeit they're true, they are. We have declining enrollment. And guess what? Not just on that campus. Enrollment comes and enrollment goes. This is a gem of a little bit of a property. And I know it's a value to Mesa. I could not stand to see it closed during a time, and if you'll remember, 2015 to today, we did have some changes. We have some new college presidents. We have a new chancellor. We need to let our chancellor do her job. And last I heard, I think there's other campuses that might want to partner with us, and that doesn't happen overnight. The proximity and, to ASU out there, other universities, whatever, a charter school, we don't know what's out there. But just saying we didn't meet the deadlines during a time, I will have to agree that there was some, not upheaval, but change. And perhaps that went off the radar just a bit. But let's put it back on our radar. Let's give our chancellor the chance to make a partnership, to make a lasting impression, to put a program on there that will bring kids out of that small mile radius that you said. We have a chance to expand a career pathway right there at Red Mountain. But instead, we want to be in the real estate business. I say not. We're in the business of education and kids.
Further comment?
May I say something?
Mrs. Haver.
I hate to just continue down this path of declining enrollment, and it does seem that there may be other outside forces who could make better use of it than we have, this campus. I would really like us to look at the other options. Are there people out there who would like to buy it? Are there people, are there schools out there that would like to partnership with us? And just give us a few options of what we can do rather than continue along this path.
Thank you, Mrs. Haver. Mr. Saar.
A lot of data, I think, I'd like to see before any decision's made. One of which is if we did close it, what would be the carrying cost of that campus? If there are potential market uses other than what we use it for, what could we identify those with in the real estate industry? Those are the kind of questions I think that I'd like to have in front of me before any decision's made. I tend to think, when that campus was built, the 202 was not in place. Now it is. So the 6 mile radius that we've talked about for 50 years has really become more insignificant with the ability to travel throughout the valley on freeways now instead of back streets. So I before we make a decision, I appreciate the fact that we're bringing this up into the public. I think it needs to happen some more as we further develop the options for this property. I've heard many of them that you talked about tonight as well. I've also heard others with ASU and UA and actually NAU, but I just think that data is so important at this decision time that we need to make sure that as much as makes sense we have in front of us before we vote on something like this.
Thank you. Dr. Thor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also think that it's important for us to have a discussion about the future of Red Mountain. I am troubled, however, by the fact that we are just 5 days away from a new college president arriving. And I certainly think we owe that new president an opportunity to review this situation and make some recommendations. So perhaps a few months from now is when we ought to be talking about this.
Any further comments, Ms. McGrath?
I feel that one of our jobs as board members is to do the best job for both the students and the taxpayers. And I feel a great responsibility to the taxpayers to spend their money. They don't give it willingly. They are taxed on their property. If they do not pay that property tax, they lose their home. So I feel doubly pressured to do the very best job I can for them. And I cannot imagine keeping a campus open that costs $7.1 million to educate 1,000 students. As I understand it, there are a great many of these students who are already taking classes at the Mesa Community College main campus. And there would be no problem with closing this because all of the instructors at this campus would be moved to the main campus. They would not lose their jobs. It just makes absolutely no sense to me to go to my taxpayers and say, oh, by the way, we're going to keep this school open, that it will cost, what is it, about $70,000 a student? It just makes no sense to me to do this. We are required to do the best fiscal job we can, and this to me screams bad fiscal job.
Dr. Thor.
I just want to clarify Mrs. McGrath's comments. That Red Mountain generates just over 1,000 footsie. It is serving over 4,000 students.
Okay, I know we've got other board comments. We have one person that signed in to speak, and perhaps their comments will facilitate further board discussion. So I'd like to call on that person at this time, Nora Reyes.
President Hendrix, members of the board, Chancellor Harper-Marinick, members of CEC, and guests, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to share a few thoughts regarding Mesa Community College's Red Mountain campus. My name is Nora Mavisca Reyes, and I serve as Vice Provost for the campus, a position I have held for the past 2 years. My comments this evening are in regard to this board agenda, on which President Hendrix recommended that the board members discuss the Red Mountain campus at Mesa Community College, including but not limited to such factors as enrollment, student success, and current and potential partnerships with community and educational institutions. MCC Red Mountain enrollment has reflected the national and district trend of decreasing enrollment since 2010, following our nation's most recent recession. However, This decrease has begun to stabilize across the district and at MCC, with last week's enrollment data for fall 2018 showing actually a 1.8% increase in footsie count for Red Mountain campus. Student success is reflected in student recognitions and achievements. In 2017, 2 Red Mountain students were named to the Coca-Cola All-USA Academic Team. This year, a Red Mountain student was selected as one of only 10 students to receive Phi Theta Kappa's 2018 Heights Transfer Scholarship, and as a 2018 Coca-Cola Academic Team Gold Scholar. We have a strong honors program with 46% of fall honors applicants indicating they will attend Red Mountain campus, a significant reflection of the caliber of students served at our campus. University partnerships have historically been an important part of the campus due to its largely transfer student population. While numerous possibilities do exist, the current focus is on partnerships with ASU and GCU, and I respectfully need to correct that the GCU partnership was successful, is successful, and is moving forward. These partnerships provide curriculum alignment and STEM pathway opportunities for students to complete their associate's and bachelor's degrees. Community partnerships have been strengthened through the reestablishment of our MCC Red Mountain Community Advisory Committee, chaired by Vice Mayor David Luna, and participation by broad representation from our educational, government, and workforce partners. Community partnerships also exist with the Arizona Game and Fish Department, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Phoenix Zoo, the Desert Botanical Garden through our campus Cienega, a unique aspect of our campus that serves as an endangered species rescue habitat and providing a learning opportunity for community college students that is usually only found at the university. In closing, I would like to thank the board for your commitment to serving our district and to meeting your responsibility to be familiar with enrollment, student success, and campus partnerships of the district's colleges. I trust and expect that you will truly and equitably meet this obligation for all college campuses and to thoroughly vet implications of potential changes by also engaging those who work at our college campuses, recognizing our joint commitment to serving our students and community through accessible, affordable, high-quality educational opportunities. I'd like to also take this opportunity to invite you to come out to Red Mountain, to come talk to our students, come talk to our staff, come talk to our community members, because I completely agree that we are responsible, you are responsible for responding to taxpayer desires and to use funding that's used from taxpayer, that taxpayers provide in a just manner. And when you take a close look at our enrollments, compare it across the college, across the district, it is reflective of what you see at a broader level, nationwide and district-wide. When you talk to our community members, particularly as we do respond to their needs and acknowledge that they fund what we do, I believe that the community around Red Mountain will tell you that we are value added to our East Valley community. I can say that confidently, being on campus almost every day for many hours. And I did serve at the Southern and Dobson campus. I have been with Maricopa colleges, a proud member of this community for 21 years, 19 of those, I guess, at Southern and Dobson. My last 2 years have been at Red Mountain campus. So I do have a broad understanding of the college needs and how difficult and challenging it can be to make responsible fiscal decisions. But having been at those 2 campuses for so many years, I can sincerely tell you that my experience at the Red Mountain campus reflects very responsible usage of taxpayer funds. We are not at $7 million in expenses at this point. We are at $5 million. Our footsie is not decreasing as of last week's numbers. It is slightly increasing, so I'm confident that with some of the changes that are in front of us, including partnerships that are gearing up and a nurse assisting program that will be implemented, we can truly be collaborative partners with our Southern and Dobson campus. The nurse assisting program is an example of how we can be value added not only to the East Valley, but to our college campus and to the district, with it being such a high need area. And at our Southern and Dobson campus, we have reached capacity because we have a thriving nursing program there. And there is great possibility for expanding that nurse assisting program, complementing the nursing program, and there are other possibilities that have arisen in regard to responding to the high needs in the healthcare areas. So in closing, thank you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your taking this responsibility seriously, and I, again, reiterate and encourage you to visit our campus, talk with our students, talk with our community members, talk with our very passionate and highly experienced, high level of expertise within our faculty and staff. Very proud to work at that campus, very proud to be a member of this Maricopa community, and very much looking forward to working with you to identify the best way to move forward in response to our obligations together. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments from the board? Mrs. Livingston.
Well, first of all, I agree with Mr. Saar that we don't discuss things often enough. We are a board that we're moving people, we're moving education, and consequently the programs are not black and white. And we do need to hear more from our colleges. We do need to invite them more to speak. We do need to open up discussion much more. And we do need to let our college presidents and our chancellor guide our decisions. That's all I have. Good going, Red Mountain.
Mr. Barney.
Thank you, President Hendrix, and thank you for bringing this to our attention, as well as for the comments from the person at Red Mountain. I very much look forward to learning more and visiting your campus, and I do appreciate your comments that we can work together in a collaborative way. It seems like we do have a great opportunity to really do a substantive analysis here and figure out what is the best direction for the overall institution. And so I very much look forward to that and really fleshing out what is taking place kind of in the enrollment arena, and as well as how we can better reach the targets that have been set out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bartney. Chancellor, do you have any questions that might help you to put together a presentation down the road from the board as far as what directions we'd like to see data in, or are we good?
Thank you, Mr. Hendrix. I took notes from as each of you expressed what you would like to get. I will work with Dr. Reyes and the incoming president of the college. Perhaps the board would be open to a work session where we can bring pertinent data and information regarding your questions, and then decide how we need to move forward collectively.
We have a group of, I gather, students that I guess didn't know what time the meeting started, and they'd like to make comments on Red Mountain. You weren't here when I read the conduct for public discussion. If you could keep your comments to 3 minutes. First speaker is Odin Poilovs.
Why do you think they're hanging back there when there's seats up here?
Seats.
Good afternoon, members of the board, presidents, and community leaders. My name is Odin Poilovs. I recently graduated from Bioscience High School in downtown Phoenix, and I'll be attending ASU with a major in business starting this August. Bioscience has some pretty amazing students. In our last 2 graduating classes alone, we had students receive full ride scholarships, all expenses paid, to Prescott College, ASU, Lewis and Clark, Bowdoin, Stanford, Notre Dame, as well as a Flynn Scholar, Obama Scholars, a Gates Scholar, and a Dream US National Scholarship recipient. These are huge accomplishments, not to be taken lightly. For anyone to get a full ride scholarship to a college, especially an Ivy League university, is remarkable. What would make it even more remarkable would be if all these students came from immigrant families. And they do. Many of my classmates have inspired me with their hard work, dedication, and resiliency. Everyone deserves a fair shot at achieving their educational dreams. I'm a US citizen, and I've seen my peers work as hard or even harder than me. I believe that there's nothing that makes us different. We all grew up in Arizona. We all graduated from high school. My peers should have the same opportunities to pay the same amount to obtain a college degree. It's unfair for our higher education institutions to deny people what they've worked so hard for, deny them education, deny them a safe chance to be a part of our society. That's unjust, unfair, and frankly does not live up to our values. But this can be different. I'd love to see a day when my friends can receive the same opportunities as me. I'm beyond happy for my classmates who received large scholarships, but it pains me to see the rest of my deserving classmates who won't be able to afford college. I'd love to see these friends have an opportunity to continue rising. They certainly have the will for it. We're asking for Maricopa community colleges to set aside a fund for these passionate, deserving students so that we may all walk beside each other one day and marvel at our journey. This is America. We're not the land of denying opportunity. We're the land of opportunity. So let's live up to those values. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is, I'm having trouble reading the handwriting, but I think it's Saul Rascon.
Good afternoon, board members, presidents, and community leaders. My name is Saul Rascon Salazar, and I am a 17-year-old junior at Brophy College Prep and a DACA recipient. I came to the U.S. when I was 5 years old, and ever since I have lived an American life. The only lifestyle I have come to know has been American. I have no memories of my first years of my life when I lived in Mexico. My earliest memories are typically about my kindergarten shenanigans and my friends and I being wild for those extremely short 30 minutes of recess that we were given. Which brings me to the topic I'm here to discuss, education and what it means and has meant to me as a child who grew up undocumented and is currently walking the tightrope of American social injustices. For my elementary and middle school education, I attended St. Matthew Catholic School here in Arizona. As a child, I was never really aware of my status. I mean, yes, of course, I knew I was Mexican, but I never really had any worries except for the fact that I had to fully learn English from kindergarten to 3rd grade. Moving on into my high school career is when I drastically began to feel my world shrink in opportunities. I received my DACA status halfway through my sophomore year, and the issues weren't really resolved, but at least I was blessed with the comfortability of temporarily living out my typical high school career, like the rest of my friends. This included having a job and being able to drive a car like everybody else was doing at 16 years old. Later on during my junior year of high school, a couple months ago, I received devastating news that in-state tuition would no longer be supported for DACA recipients in the state of Arizona. Now, how lucky am I to be in this state? I was given DACA, which got rid of the fear of deportation and introduced the possibility of pursuing my education in my home state. And then DACA was rescinded, which crumbled all of that up. And then the renewals of DACA were once again granted, which brought hope once again. But then yet again, here I am, because Arizona decided upon this ruling, and I'm just here trying to fight for an essential human right, which is education. Now, I know that education isn't being taken away from us, but for the majority of us and the 2,100 plus dreamers currently attending the Maricopa community colleges, and the many more who are hopeful for their application in the upcoming year, a higher price for education simply means no education at all. And as a high school student like myself currently going through the stressful college process, I'm here respectfully asking to keep all high school students in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Vanessa Gonzalez.
Good evening, board members, presidents, and community leaders. I am Vanessa Gonzalez. I recently graduated from Bioscience High School and will be heading to ASU in the fall. I was born and raised in the tougher parts of Phoenix where school districts were underfunded, lacked resources, and teachers were not as invested in students. I faced many obstacles as I grew up in this environment where many didn't seem to care about higher education. But my mother had a goal, and that was to send all her kids to college so they could live better lives than the one she could provide as an immigrant mother who worked 2 jobs. I have pushed through many of those obstacles to get where I am now, but many of my childhood friends have not been so lucky. Many face even harsher obstacles because of a lack of status, and these are students who are just as hardworking and talented. So for the past year, I have been advocating for undocumented youth and families in Arizona. Through working with local organizations, I have continued to see numerous accounts of students struggling to continue their education. I have seen many dreams put on hold from students who would only benefit our school systems and later our workforce. Right now is not the time to be adding more barriers to education when higher education is needed to get better paying jobs, and better paying jobs mean that people can create better lives for themselves and their communities. As a first-generation student and now as a young voter, many like myself are prioritizing better education and fair education, seeing as how the political climate in Arizona has not favored either. It is up to all of us to make this change. Investing in these students will only create a positive change, one that only benefits our communities, schools, economies, and in the end, create a version of Arizona that we are all proud to be a part of. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Dea Garcia.
Good evening, members of the board, college presidents, chancellor, and community members. My name is Deanira Garcia Ornelas, but most people just call me Dea. I am a 19-year-old DACA student at MCC. I'm on track to receive my associate's in science and hopefully then transfer to ASU. I had the privilege of going through the public education system in the state of Arizona, but my experience was far from ordinary. I came to the United States at the age of 1. I have no recollection of my birthplace. My first language was Spanish. I started kindergarten without any English. Thankfully, my teacher was bilingual, and because of that sweet lady, I was able to grasp the basics of the English language in less than a year. Throughout those 13 years of my life, I knew I was undocumented. The information was never kept from me. Sometimes I wonder what it would have been like if I hadn't known. Would it have been a little more ordinary? I also didn't grow up with anyone to look up to academically. No one in my immediate family and my extended family had gone through the public education system, and definitely not college. I did not grasp the full concept of what college meant until my sophomore year of high school. Around this time, DACA was implemented, and it was as if I could finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. I also realized that I definitely was not alone, that I was not the only one feeling that this nation I call home did not recognize me as one of their own. However, I took a more optimistic outlook in life, and I surrounded myself with positive influences. Through the help of my mentors, teachers, and classmates, I did what I could to stay afloat despite this great disadvantage. It was due to my mentor's guidance that on my sophomore year of high school, I was introduced to the ACE program, which stands for Achieving a College Education. Through the ACE program, high school students are enrolled in college courses and attend community colleges during the weekend where they are treated as college students. It's basically a scholarship program. When I found out that I was accepted into the ACE program, my heart was filled with joy and I was delighted. However,
Can I interrupt you just one moment? And I apologize. I just had an emergency come up. I've got to leave right now. I'm going to pass the chair to Dr. Thor. It should be Mrs. Haver, but since she's not able to read the people who need to speak, I'm going to pass it to Mrs. Haver. I apologize for interrupting you.
It's okay.
I apologize to the board, but I've got to leave right now.
Please continue.
When I found out that I was accepted into the ACE program, my heart was filled with joy and I was delighted. However, this joy rapidly faded. I remember being in the passenger seat of my mom's truck as we were driving home, and I couldn't help it. I started crying. I was crying because I had been pulled aside and I was told that the cost to fund my education would be 2 to 3 times more than that of a citizen. This meant that the cost of a citizen per class was around $250 compared to the $750 that I would have to pay. I felt that this opportunity was being robbed and stripped away from me. What weighs even heavier in my heart is to know that I wasn't the only one. After that day, I was never called back to the office to speak about tuition costs. I don't know what allowed me to stay in that program. What I do know is that waking up every Sunday at 8 a.m. to go to class was a privilege that a lot of my friends took for granted. And it was something I treasured. Now, I stand before you today to humbly request that you do something to help me and 2,000 other students continue our education just like the ACE program believed in me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Reggie Carrillo.
Good afternoon, members of the board and community members. My name is Reginald Carrillo. I am a native to Arizona. I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, and became a child of rural Arizona, raised in Almiraj and Surprise. My dad actually works for Maricopa Community College, and that provided a pathway for me to be the first to attend college in my family, because I am from an underserved community, and I was also a part of the ACE program. So I want to say thank you to this institution and those that offered empowering opportunities that provided a pathway to success for me. It was due to the classes I took at MCC during the summer and winter breaks that I was able to graduate in 4 years from Arizona State University with a degree in global health. Since then, I have become an educator myself. As an educator, I see the capital that lies within each and every one of our students here in Arizona. I step into the classroom every day to empower and to acknowledge my students and tell them that they can pursue anything that they set their minds to if they work hard enough for it. However, I have students that will not be afforded the same privileges of pursuing their goals in the way that those privileges were given to me. I have students that will have more barriers placed in their way. Those barriers that prevent them from pursuing a higher education, barriers from obtaining a job, from starting a business, from receiving public benefits that would allow them in turn to continue supporting our Arizona economy. I had the sheer luck of being born in Arizona. I work at a Title I school with a population of over 30% ELL students. We are 98% majority Hispanic. As an educator, one of the hardest truths I have had to acknowledge is that some of them, those brought here, will fall through the cracks because the system is set up that way. It is heartbreaking to see that not all of my students will be given this chance to pursue a higher education, even if they want to, because the political social situation right now does not allow for it, and I'm specifically referencing Prop 300. I know that was voter approved. I do not see my students as those who deserve to receive an education and those that do not, because they do not have proper documentation. I teach them because I know that each one of them is capable, hardworking, responsible, fiercely independent, and passionate about education and pursuing careers of their dreams, just like all Arizonans are, no matter where they come from. However, our institutions currently do not show support for them with any sort of optimism that there is a plan for a brighter future for them. How can we, educators, be expected to educate our young Arizona residents and progress our state when we know that some of our students will fall due to systematic cracks because of Prop 300? Some of them will face an individual, an institution that says, sorry, you worked hard enough, you worked hard, you have ambitions to pursue a higher education, you did great in school, but you're out of luck. We have a responsibility to meet the obligations we promised our youngest who are in pursuit of a higher education, regardless if they have the documentation or not. I hope your commitment to all our students of providing access to higher education is unwavering. So many of us are counting on you, and so many of them are counting on you so that they can fulfill their American dream. Thank you.
Thank you. Reina Montoya.
Reina, hold on, I'm sorry. How are you on your phone right now?
I'm looking at documents.
Come on, man, just
I'm looking at.
pay attention. People are giving their story.
Good evening, board members, college presidents, chancellor, and community members. My name is Reina Montoya. I am the founder of Aliento, an educator and a community leader. I have come to express my deep sense of gratitude of being part of my educational development of achieving higher education. Growing up undocumented, I would have never fathomed to be standing here tonight in front of you. I graduated high school with college credits due to the dual enrollment program. I was able to take summer classes at MCC and was able to graduate from Arizona State University in 4 years and was recognized as the most outstanding undergraduate student, graduating with 2 bachelor's degrees in political science, transborder studies, and a dance minor. Since graduating college, I have received a master's degree in secondary education, and I founded my own social venture, Aliento, that invests in the well-being and leadership development of children and youth who are currently facing barriers due to the lack of immigration status. Since Aliento's founding, I have received multiple awards, including a global fellowship called Echoing Green. Aliento was one of the 30 ideas chosen by expert evaluators from a pool of nearly 3,000 applications from 164 countries. And people like Michelle Obama and Van Jones have been part of this fellowship in the past. This year, I was named one of the 30 under 30 social entrepreneurs for Forbes magazine. I was also recognized by Univision as one of the 15 Latinas changing the world. It is also my honor to share one of my most recent accomplishments with you all. I was accepted to a leadership program for executive directors and CEOs to expand my postgraduate education at Harvard University. I know I wouldn't be standing here in front of you today if I have not been for my parents, my mentors, and private donors who believed in my potential before all these recognitions. I had overcome many barriers, and to be part of only 1% of undocumented students to achieve a higher education as a master's or higher. This truly pains me and weighs really heavy on my heart. As a little girl, I was taught by my parents the importance of being a public servant, just like you, to use my skills and my talents to help our future generations. This is why I am here today, not only to share my accomplishments with you, but to plead that you will see in me our high school students or college students who are filled with dreams, desires, and a drive to thrive. I was in their shoes 10 years ago. And through all this time, I've learned that it is my responsibility and the responsibility of all Arizonans to give hope to our youth, to ensure that we have a pathway of achieving our higher educational goals, where they are accessible and affordable. I respectfully ask you to touch your hearts and to think of me, to think of the accomplishments and see our young people like Saul, like Deya, and many others as a reflection of hope and drive, the same drive and hope I had. Let's work together to ensure that all Arizona high school graduates, regardless of their immigration status, can achieve their educational goal. Our youth are counting on us. Let's make sure that we don't fail them again. Thank you so much for your time.
I would like to thank all of the students, future, current, and former, for speaking with us tonight. I also want to be sure that you know that you were speaking under the citizens interim portion of our agenda. And so in accordance with the open meeting law, we are not able to have any discussion tonight about this. However, I would suggest to the Chancellor that sometime in the future, we board members would like to know what kinds of opportunities and efforts the district is exploring on behalf of these students. So thank you. We'll return now to the agenda. We're under information and monitoring reports, 11.1, review employments, regular short-term, specially funded, and separation. Do board members have any comments or questions? If not, 12.1, review the budget analysis report for Fund 1 for the 9 months ending May 31st, 2018. Do board members have any comments or questions? No. Hearing none. Faculty Executive Council report? No report. Thank you. Adjunct faculty report? Patricia Haas?
Hello. President Hendrix, members of the board, Chancellor Harper-Marinick, members of the CEC, and guests. I'm Patricia Gale Haas, the adjunct Faculty Association President. The first thing I want to report is the adjuncts were very happy to get the news about their 6% increase in load hour, raising the rate to $9.25 an hour. That was pretty exciting. And this is a significant jump, and we were understandably pleased. So thank you. We're also looking forward to launching a variety of insurance programs. This does not include major medical, but it does include joining a group which will have negotiating powers and discounts plus several office visits a year. There will also be dental, vision, critical illness, home and auto, plus other programs offered. So that should be, we'll have an enrollment period in end of August and the 1st of September, and the program is scheduled to be implemented on October 1. So we have new board members starting in July. Sylvia Torrey will be representing South, and Janet Smith will sit in for Paradise. Debbie Abley for Chandler Gilbert, and Brian Adams Thies for Australia. Angela Ambrosia will be the representative for Rio. She'll be the second ever that I know of to have a rep at Rio, so we're excited about that. I would like to recognize the college leadership for supporting these new representatives and for welcoming them to the table. I was the rep for Chandler Gilbert for a couple of years. And the support of Dr. Bill Guerrero was instrumental and vitally important to making me successful. Dr. G was vitally helpful in helping me understand systems. He spent a lot of time with me, patiently answering questions, and sometimes questions I had not even thought to ask, but ones that he knew I needed to know. So thank you, Dr. G, for all your help, support, always there for me. This is kind of an informational pay-it-forward system because it is only with that kind of quality support and information could I be prepared to help anyone else. We are also meeting and thinking about how adjuncts can effectively support transformation. Not only do adjuncts represent Maricopa to the majority of students, but many adjuncts live in the industrial, the healthcare, the business, and the informational worlds for which we want to prepare students. We plan to figure out ways to engage adjuncts in the transformational teams, bridging gaps between the traditional academics and the need to prepare an emerging workforce. Regarding the academic world, we are moving forward with a new orientation for new adjuncts. This will be digital. This distinct program was created by the Adjunct Faculty Development Team in conjunction with Maricopa Center for Teaching and Learning and is scheduled to launch a pilot this fall. We are hoping this program will leave some of the pressure on the system to answer the hundreds of questions for adjuncts when they're waiting to start. We still have a glitch or two to figure out, but we want to thank Jana Rislin, who was the driving force in creating the program. If we can get this in place, we would like to have feedback from the colleges on the effectiveness of this program. So thank you very much for your support of adjuncts.
Thank you. We're moving now to governing board reports. Mr. Bartney.
Thank you, Dr. Thor. I would like to report on a couple of things from this month. First, I was able to attend the Arizona-Mexico Commission Summit. There were a number of individuals from Maricopa Community Colleges. I don't see President Bustamante. I do see Klein in the audience. And it was great to hear all the collaborations taking place between Arizona and Mexico, in particular with our neighbor in Sonora. And Rio Salado did a great presentation in the Education Committee talking about the partnerships in the education sphere of trying to give online certifications to students in Sonora and really maximize that exchange that exists. So there were some great innovations in the education sector, as well as just across the board, some presentations about Skybridge over in Mesa and how that really could change the e-commerce world between our two states. So That's one. Two, I was able to attend the National Association of Latino Elected Officials, and I will just say there were community college board members from around the country, as well as a lot of Latino elected officials, and Maricopa Community College is certainly has a good reputation. The conversations that were being had as we talk, and thank you for all those who spoke earlier, and as we talk about enrollment, some of the items that came up with Achieve 60, we got a lot of work to do if we're going to achieve 60. We're talking close to 1 million students that we would need to educate in order to get there. So I don't know who's going to do that. I know we're at 200,000 already at the community colleges. I mean, even if we were able to double it, we still got a long ways to go to achieve 60. So I think at the end of this both those conferences just really the amount of work that can be done and the opportunities that are there, if we're all able to work together, I just think are outstanding. And so I hope that we are able to come together as a community across all the different institutions, politically, educationally, and organizations that exist to do that. And the last thing is I was finally able to tour the Small Business Development Center, and I just continue to be impressed. And I believe there is another area that with the continued resources will also grow and really serve our community. So thank you.
Mrs. McGrath. Mrs. Livingston.
I've been out and about in the state, and what I'm hearing everywhere is that Maricopa is a success. I think you need to know that, we need to know that, and our college presidents should feel good about this, along with our chancellor. Yes, we have a long way to go when we look at Achieve 60 or 360 by 2030. We have a distance to go, but it doesn't fall just on us. It falls within the entire educational system. We can do this. We just need now to start thinking outside of the box, and of course, letting our educational leaders and those that work within the system do their job.
Mr. Saar.
Dr. Thor, I'm going to defer my time to the Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Saar. Oh, Mrs. Haver.
Yes.
And then
Mrs. Haver,
Yes.
do you have a governing board report?
I really don't have anything to report this month.
Okay, thank you. Chancellor.
Thank you, Dr. Thor. First, I would like to complete the sentence I was in the middle of regarding the Red Mountain work session and work with the board chair and the board members and the leadership at the college to have a work session in early fall to bring back the information that will be pertinent to a conversation about judicious decision making. I will also come back with information about efforts to support our DACA students. And thank you for being here tonight and speaking up. And then I would like to take the opportunity to say thank you for leadership and outstanding service to Dr. Jan Geller, who will be retiring after serving Scottsdale Community College for 10 years. And I would like to say thank you. You have been instrumental in moving the college forward. We appreciate all that you have done. And we wish you a real retirement after you leave the college. So please join me in saying thank you to Dr. Geller.
Thank you all very much. And to Dr. Thor, members of the board, my dear Chancellor, CEC colleagues, and friends in the audience, some who know me, some who don't. Hemingway always said it's very important to write one true sentence. And I've been thinking about what that one true sentence is for my 10 years here in Maricopa. And it really comes down to there being no greater joy nor satisfaction than doing what you love in a place you love with the people you love. And Maricopa has been
has epitomized that in the experiences Maricopa has provided. I will remember you always. It's a bittersweet leaving, but I have grandkids and adult children waiting. So thank you very much. Thank you, Chancellor, for all you.
Yeah, and thank you, Dr. Gaylor. That was beautiful.
Dr. Thor, if I could take one more minute and just say thank you to those who serve as interim presidents. Sasan Puritizadi at Mesa Community College, Dr. Bill Guerrero at Chena Gilbert Community College, and Chris Haynes, who's simply moving from Phoenix to Scottsdale. We appreciate what you have all done. And when the call came to serve, you said yes, and that is much appreciated. So please join me in saying thank you to them also for their service. Thank you.
We now want to establish our next meeting. It will be August the 28th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. here in the governing boardroom. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.